Hello, and welcome to the Mr. 50mm YouTube channel. I know, you thought I was done doing these DIY rangefinder videos. I thought I was done doing these too. Yet, here we are with another video. So what did I get up to? Well, I'll cut to the chase. I managed to change the design on my original build just enough to fit a Leica M mount instead of the Leica thread mount you see on the original build. Fun fact, this might be the first digital M mount build that doesn't require a donor M mount body to take parts from. If you're interested in just getting to building one of these cameras, or you just want to see what the differences are compared to the LTM build, feel free to click away right now to the hackaday.io page. The video is effectively over. For anyone else though, I want to discuss some of the challenges that came with adding the Leica M mount into this build, and some lessons I learned along the way. Let's get into it. So why is the M mount hard? Well, the M mount itself isn't that difficult. The difficult part was adapting my design, which was made for like a thread mount, and not M mount. And you might think, why not base the camera off an M mount camera to begin with if you wanted an M mount camera? If you know me, and you've seen my videos, you might have guessed. Price. The upfront price of using an M mount camera as the basis was off-putting. Using an LTM camera made sense from a risk standpoint, since if I bork the project on a LTM camera that is a Soviet-era rangefinder, no biggie, not a massive sunk cost. But how would it feel if I borked my M3? It'd feel pretty bad. I would not like that, and I would not want to try it again if that's what happened. Now, you might also be thinking, why even bother with the M mount then if it's so much trouble for me personally? Well, I have M mount lenses, like this one, and I wanted to use it, okay? Is that too much to ask? Maybe it is. But anyways, it came to me that I didn't actually need to base the camera off of any M mount camera at all. And that's because, in theory, M mount cameras are designed partially to be compatible with Leica thread mount cameras via an adapter. And this implicitly means the rangefinder cam on the M body is going to be the same as it is for an LTM camera, since they both have to be able to, touch the back of the helicoid in the same spot and range find the same way. So, given a little bit of effort, any LTM rangefinder, in theory, could be made to mate with M mount glass if you chop enough bits away. So the next issue was, where do I find a donor M mount? Initially, I was actually looking for first-party Leica parts, but I quickly abandoned that idea since money. First-party M mount bits cost quite a bit, and they're harder to find. So I put on my thinking cap. That's just my hair. But I thought, oh shit, why not grab a mount off of, say, an M to Sony E mount or M to Fuji X mount adapter? These adapters are cheap as heck and very, very, accessible. So for this project, I grabbed a photodiox adapter and I started measuring. And I quickly ran into some hilarious issues. One thing that I immediately saw was that the M mount is notably bigger than LTM mount, which makes sense. I mean, it has to be at least big enough for an LTM mount to fit into it. So naturally, it was going to be bigger. What I didn't expect was that it was going to be so big that the adapter was going to get in the way of my Fed 5 rangefinder. I should have guessed that, since if you look at the normal Fed 5, they even had to cut a part of the lens mount off of the LTM mount just to accommodate the rangefinder cover. So yeah, I had to take a Dremel to a M mount and I had to cut it flat so it would mount flush with my rangefinder cover. Another issue was just the fact that the M mount is lower. It's about 1 millimeter lower than LTM, to be exact. That doesn't sound like much, but when I had measured out how much I needed to cut into the body to accommodate the new mount, I had my doubts whether or not this could work. The amount of material that I had to remove to make the M mount fit was perilously close to, getting in the way of me being able to actually mount the Fed 5 rangefinder, since that screw is sitting almost about there, and it is about maybe 0.5 millimeter away from the M mount itself. So it almost got in the way. But with the physical mount addressed, I almost forgot that bayonet mounts are a bit more complicated than thread mounts. Not cool. Making the lens release pin changes to the body weren't too bad, but it was just a bit funny doing that and, just using the button from the lens adapter to, release the M mount lens. It kind of looks a bit funky, but whatever, it works. And, it's not too bad to use. Again, it just looks a bit weird. In order for me to accommodate the M mount, I ended up using a adapter that used springs that were not directly integrated into the mount itself, but were integrated into the mount the adapter's body. And when it came to designing the placement of the springs, this was actually easy enough. I just grabbed my calipers and mostly eyeballed some measurements. Turns out I got solid eyeballs, and most of the screw holes for where the springs needed to go ended up lining up first go. But I admit, I initially did want to use one of the newer adapters that integrate the springs into the mount. And here's what I mean. I have one of them here. I'm just going to show you. You can see right there, there is a slat cut out of the mount, and that is an integrated spring that provides that nice, feedback for when you click the lens in and the spring pushes against the lens, and you get the nice locking feeling. And I actually think that this design is very simple, very neat, and it's very cool that you can accomplish this same feeling of, the clicky bayonet mount by literally cutting some notches in the metal. It feels pretty similar. Now, one thing I realized when I was trying to use these things though, is that they're almost always bigger than the designs that don't use the integrated springs. So I ended up ditching that idea. In hindsight though, when I had a look after my build, I actually tried to measure my M3 mount to see if there was actually any different from the adapter that I used. And it turns out the mount on the M3 itself is a tiny bit smaller than any of these adapters turn out to be. And so what did I learn from doing the M mount camera? Well, for starters, I learned the Fed 5 rangefinder is set up very low on the camera. If you see other LTM finders, or even modern LTM Voigtlander Bessa cameras, you can see that these cameras don't have to chop off the top of their mount to fit the rangefinder cover. Odd, I know, but they don't. The next thing I learned was that I think some of my old lenses might need to have a service. I realized that after finishing the design while testing the M mount, that most of the M mount lenses I tried were much closer to matching each other on the rangefinder and on the camera than the LTM lenses were. That kind of makes sense since the M mount lenses are significantly newer and they might have been made to a tighter tolerance. I mean, there were not nearly as many M mount manufacturers as there were LTM mount manufacturers. Plus, you get father time, plus you get other camera repairers who may not have been kind to my LTM lenses, and the result is that my LTM lenses, I think all of them have a little bit of variation that make it a little bit off on the rangefinder. But what it turns out is that the M lenses I do have, I can actually swap them on this camera without needing to adjust my rangefinder. Neat. Conclusion. So yeah, now you too have the option to make an M mount digital rangefinder. I will say that the build is a little bit harder than the LTM one. There are a couple more steps and there are more issues with light sealing. But I do get into that on the hackaday.io instructions, so you won't be out to lunch totally. Anyways, we'll see what else I can do with this design. I am actually excited to keep building on this project. It's been a lot of fun. But question for you, what do you think of the project so far? Does the M mount make this more interesting? Should I try maybe Contax mount next? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Maybe a super thanks if you're into that. Otherwise, till next time, bye.